hosted by Startup Réseau, in partnership with Enterprise Singapore. In today's webinar, we'll be focusing on what the opportunities look like for Singapore enterprises in the India market. We have with us two esteemed speakers who have been in the market and have a combined experience of over 2 decades. To start off, I'd like to introduce you first to our founder and CEO at Startup Réseau, Ajay Ramasubramaniam. Ajay is a seasoned executive with 20 years of experience in setting up, operating, and growing businesses across diverse geographies such as East Africa, Canada, India, and Southeast Asia. He is an active member of the startup ecosystem in India and has earlier built India's top meta accelerator, Zone Startups, an Indo-Canadian joint venture through which he has set up programs for over 25 leading corporations. I'll hand it over to you, Ajay, to give us an overview of Startup Réseau.
Thanks, Anshul, and thank you, Enterprise Singapore, for the continued opportunity to work with you and having us as your GIA partner in Mumbai, as a part of which we are hosting this webinar to talk about different avenues for Singaporean companies when they're looking at expanding their horizons and looking at a market like India. Thanks for everyone who has joined in. My name is Ajay Ramasubramaniam. I'm founder and CEO of Startup Réseau. We'll give you a quick walkthrough of who we are and what we do as Startup Réseau, and that will kind of lend itself into the fireside chat that we have set up, talking about the India market opportunity, and then hand it over back to Anshul and Gaurav, who will talk about what does the program for Singaporean companies who are looking at accessing the Indian market look like under our GIA Mumbai program. So Anshul, if you can just quickly bring up Startup Réseau deck. So just to put it out there, I mean, we do not see ourselves as a run-of-the-mill accelerator or an incubator of sorts, but we like to call ourselves more as a pacer, which is more of a newer terminology that is kind of coming up, because when you work with startups, different companies are at different stages of their life cycle. And given the nature of our business as Startup Réseau, and I'll talk about what are the things that we do. We work with companies that are as early as just beyond an idea and closer to an MVP. But we also work with companies which are much further along, companies that have raised a few rounds of capital. And we work with different stakeholders, which include large enterprises, governments, and the likes. So for us to be relevant to the different stakeholders that we work with, we need to keep pace with where they are at their 0 to 1 journey or their life cycle. And that's why we like to call ourselves as a pacer. And while we're headquartered in Mumbai, in India, we operate extensively in a bunch of markets that cut across South and Southeast Asia. There's Australia, Canada. We do a lot of work in Africa. So we kind of are in the business of engaging with startups or emerging technology companies, but multiple programs that have carved, keeping in mind the different stakeholders that we work with. Anshul, if you go to the next slide, please. Yeah, these are our 4 business pillars. Startup Réseau as a name. The first part of the name is the more obvious one. We work with startups or emerging technology companies. Réseau is a French word for network, and the network that we're talking about, or we are bringing to companies like yourselves or companies that we engage with, are 4 pillars that you can see here on screen. The first one and the larger one is enterprise. We work with large enterprises, which are typically Fortune 500 companies or homegrown large corporations for whom and with whom we co-create corporate-backed accelerators and innovation programs. Enterprise Connect is a big part of everything that we do. And just as much as startups and emerging technology companies require access to these large enterprises are constantly looking to innovate and stay relevant to their audience. And for that, they need to kind of be at the forefront of innovation, which is not just limited to technology-related innovation. It would include innovation when it comes to product, innovation when it comes to business processes, and so on. We work with large enterprises to help them create platforms or avenues which allow them to engage with emerging technologies. Our second vertical is capital. We are pretty much earmarked or limiting ourselves to Africa as the only geography where we're looking to deploy early stage pre-seed money. To that effect, over the past 3 years and thereabouts, we have operated about 15 cohorts. We have evaluated more than 6,000 companies across the continent, onboarded close to 234 companies to our programs, and written small angel checks to about 10 companies. But that's a completely different market and completely different thesis that we work with under a separate brand called Hindsight Ventures. Our third vertical is market, which is where this conversation with companies from Singapore becomes relevant, and with Enterprise Singapore is out here. We work with government organizations, government agencies on two fronts, enabling governments to help companies from their markets to expand into a market like India, but also at the same time, we enable companies from India and the global south to expand into international markets through structured market access programs. Global Innovation Alliance Mumbai is part of Enterprise Singapore's uh, global network of programs which cut across 14 countries and more than 20 programs. And the GIA program has gone through a couple of cohorts, and this is the third iteration or the third cohort that we're looking to recruit for. And the program itself is something that we have innovated upon basis feedback that we have received from participants, and also looking at the uptake that we have had. And Anshul and Gaurav and Elaine from Enterprise Singapore will touch upon that. Our fourth vertical is advisory stroke services, under which we run our own branded programs. So while number one and number three pretty much focus on programs that are sponsored, funded by large enterprises and governments, we also run our own programs focused on thematic areas like sustainability, fintech, AI, women entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs. And we also own and operate about 4 events and conference properties, which is pretty much our network that gets leveraged by the stakeholders and partners that we work with. Anshul, if you can go to the next slide, please. Anshul, if you can move the slide. Yeah. So this is what our global network looks like, cutting across 16 countries and counting more than 40 odd strategic partnerships, and we have access to more than 35,000 tech startups, which are all companies that have applied into one or many of our programs. So any company, any partner that we work with, it's not just because of a country of operations or a specific program, but it is pretty much access to everything that we have built over the years that they get access to. Whether you as a startup who gets into a country specific or a market specific program, even you get access to everything that we do across the different regions and with different partners. So that becomes a significant takeaway for anyone to kind of work with us or partner with us. Next slide, please. Corporate accelerators or our experience in delivering corporate programs is a major part of other work. And the reason why, even when we look at market access programs, we like to talk about our enterprise expertise or working with large corporations, because end of the day, companies, whether they are homegrown, in market, or they're international companies expanding to new geography, they are looking at these corporates as customers, as strategic partners. In many cases also to look at it from an investment standpoint. So we take a big pride in the kind of partners that we have worked with over the years. They're about 50 and counting. The slide needs a little bit of update in terms of some of the recent partners, but again, it cuts across different industries, as you can see: banking and financial services, healthcare, telecom, media and technology, sports and entertainment. There is energy, hospitality, supply chain and logistics. So that's a big part of takeaways that startups get into our program get access to not only the corporates for whom and with whom we are running these corporate programs and corporate accelerators, but over the years we have built a network of more than 400 odd corporates just in a market like India. So companies which are from international markets wanting to get into our programs, that's the network or Rolodex that we open up for them. The next slide, please, Gaurav. I'm sure. With that, I'd like to pass it on back to Anshul to kickstart on this slide and thereafter. Anshul, over to you.
Thanks, Ajay. I'd like to invite Elaine from the Enterprise Singapore team to give us a quick overview about the Global Innovation Alliance initiative at Enterprise Singapore.
Thanks, Anshu. So hi everyone, I'm Elaine from Enterprise Singapore. So together with me, I do have my teammates from the South Asia team. So Brenda and I think Wei Kang is also on the call today with us. So I'm from this team called the Global Innovation Network. And what it means is that we work with partners to actually help Singapore startups to go overseas. So next slide, please. Yep. So throughout the whole presentation earlier, you heard Ajay saying GIA. So what GIA is about is really the Global Innovation Alliance. It's actually a network of partners, accelerators, even startups themselves in this network. And what this network helps is to really help Singapore startups to go overseas. And here you can see that there are a lot of different dots. So you can see the red one, lighter red, and then also the gray dots. So what it means that these are where our presence are. So for GIA itself, we have expanded over to 20 cities. Currently this year we have 21 in total, and at least in India we have 3. We have 2. So one is on Bangalore, Mumbai. So these are the 2. And then we do also have this thing called the Co-Innovation Network. So what this Co-Innovation Network does is for Singapore companies to actually do R&D collaboration with overseas company and then come together to actually expand into each other's market. So for India itself, we also do have the Co-Innovation Program. So if you're interested, you can check that out. But more importantly, what this network does is to really help everyone to really gain market access. So it could be either through like you hiring new talents overseas, fundraising, establishing operations, and also even getting like new clients. I think ultimately when startups actually venture overseas, what they really want is new clients. So that's why they actually join this program. So to date, at least for the GIA aspect itself, we have supported over 750 participants from Singapore to enter the overseas market. And in terms of the co-innovation network, we have supported, I think, about 100 projects to date. So of course, happy to share that we actually partnered with startup Réseau to run the Mumbai Acceleration Program. And later, Anshu will be sharing more about what's the mechanics of the program later. Yeah, thanks, Anshu. Over to you.
Thanks, Elaine. And with that, we'll move on to our main section of today's webinar, our fireside chat with Sunil. In today's dynamic landscape, the convergence of technology and market opportunities is creating remarkable potential for collaboration and growth. So over this next 20-30 minutes, we'll delve into the key trends, opportunities, and strategies that make India an exciting hub for tech innovation, and how Singapore enterprises can leverage these as a gateway to new possibilities. I'd like to introduce our speakers now. We have with us Sunil Padmanabh. He's a well-recognized transformative digital strategy advisor, startup mentor, and industry influencer. He comes with over 25 years of an outstanding track record of advising 100 plus enterprise CXOs and digital leaders of diverse businesses to execute their digital innovation agenda and leverage startup innovation. Sunil has strong expertise in the startup ecosystem in India, particularly on cross-border co-innovation programs, and helps global enterprises effectively adopt startup innovation. He has previously worked in leadership roles at companies like Oracle, Gartner, Infosys, and IBM. We also have with us today Sriram PH, CEO and co-founder of Dave AI, an AI-powered sales experience platform that helps brands drive sales with improved and interactive product discovery experiences using a virtual sales avatar that mimics a human sales brain. Throughout his career, Sriram has also held various leadership positions at software companies where he concentrated on fostering innovation and building business relationships. And with that, I'd hand it over to Sunil and Sriram to take this conversation forward.
Thanks, Anshul.
Great. Hey, thanks, Anshul, and good afternoon to all the folks who have joined in from Singapore. Hi, Elaine. I'm Sunil Padmanabh. I'm an industry influencer and a digital strategist, and have been in the startup ecosystem for almost more than 8-9 years now in various roles, starting with leading the Oracle Startup Accelerator, and incidentally, I led the Oracle Startup Accelerator of Singapore, where we helped huge number of startups in Singapore access Oracle technologies and things like that. So beyond that, last 5 years, I have been specializing in the cross-border co-innovation, which means startups globally getting access to Indian enterprise clients and government and various other GCCs, the Global Capability Centers based of India, which have been very actively engaging startups across the globe. I work very closely with startups, as part of the Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce, SwissNext, Indo-Israel, and things like that, and also some of the cross-innovation startups from the US wanting to access Indian startups. And the last 5 years has been a very, very interesting turn, particularly post-COVID, when the demand and the compulsion to innovate through digital transformation is significant. And with the proliferation of mobile devices, the compulsion to extend apps and solutions on a mobile device of the consumer of their choice. So these kind of drivers have been pushing a lot of opportunities in the Indian market across the industries. And with the, as you're aware, the presence of the who is who of the insurance companies, banks, retail giants, automotive manufacturers, and various logistics providers have all been on this digital transformation exercise, which means post-COVID there is a strong demand to transform the customer experience of almost every large enterprise customer. So, which means that right from their hiring to procuring, from customer order to cash processes across the organization, it's going through a transformation, which means every organization, large enterprise clients are under tremendous pressure to innovate. And and at all times their in-house teams, despite the best of the product capability and innovation teams, are under compulsion to scale overnight, which means they have no other way but to partner with startups. And hence this co-innovation exercise has been very prominent, as very rightly Anshul mentioned. The kind of even their co-innovation programs that they have launched, itself proves that the kind of opportunities that are presenting in the Indian market. Now, let me start with the kind of industry segments where the Indian customers, and which means their enterprise clients, their governments, their educational institutions, their logistics companies, their e-commerce portals. They are the typical in the gaming world and in the cybersecurity space. So almost across the industry, they have been very actively engaging the startups, as their extended innovation, channel. So, which means that they are able to adopt these startups into their enterprise model, part of the digital transformation, and then extend all their innovations across the life cycle of their own product development or the new offerings or solutions in the marketplace. So this has become extremely rapid. And as you're also aware, India has a huge number of startups and the presence of and the emergence of a huge number of unicorns. And despite all the availability of the innovation talent here, the Indian markets are still looking to get the best of both worlds in terms of engaging startups overseas. And there has been very, very strong success in Indian enterprise clients, the global capability centers, which are becoming innovation hubs in India, from fintech, from retail to cybersecurity innovation hubs. They've all been actively engaging startups outside India. And the maturity is significant in terms of how the use cases they share it with their co-innovation partners overseas, and they curate these startups. And and someone like me who has been an industry influencer has also been enabling the connect between these startups and the needs of the Indian enterprise clients or the GCCs or any other market segment to help startups gain access to Indian markets. So, where are these opportunities and what category of industries? And if I'm a Singaporean startup or B2B SaaS vendor, where should I focus and what should be the priority in terms of my access? And how do I gain access to these clients? And typically, what does the engagement look like? What are the bottlenecks? Is all probably what I'll briefly touch on in this conversation today. And to give you a very quick overview on some of the low-hanging fruits on who is actively engaging the Singaporean startups. It's all any client, any large retail organization who is on to a customer experience transformation, leveraging the latest of the AI technologies, conversational AIs, have been engaging global startups. And this has worked very well in their favor, particularly when they gain access to innovation and when they have to churn out their product and offering to their global clients worldwide. So retail is a major sector to focus in India. Apart from that, I see a lot of action in the healthcare space, particularly in remote monitoring, remote diagnostics, inpatient monitoring, particularly those involved in, let's say, a metaverse related development. If you're a startup around that space, and importantly, connecting inpatient experience to the payment providers and the payers, kind of 360-degree connect between the patient and the insurance system. So that's in the healthcare, remote diagnostics, particularly the AI and the IoT part in terms of diagnostics around neonatal facilities kind of thing is what I have noticed, particularly large, cash-rich hospitals in India engaging global startups. There is also a huge action I see in terms of clean energy and sustainability relating thing. For example, energy conservation related monitoring solutions and offerings around that. And coming to the edtech sector, we have a huge still potential for an online experience, the kind of Facebook kind of an experience. And I will touch upon each one of this in a little bit detail as we go along. But overall, where I want to drive this conversation is you are at the right time when it comes to the opportunities being opened up for global startups. Particularly, the Indian market is getting very mature in how to align global startups who come from a different culture, from a different ecosystem of consumers, but very importantly, the e-commerce revolution and the mobile revolution in India has accelerated this maturity. So the needs of the consumer, the 360-degree, view of a customer and the compulsions for every organization of every industry having this kind of a need has been driving this adoption and the need for the startups. So this I'm talking across technologies. It can be AI, it can be IoT, it can be data analytics, it can be a cloud transformation. And this is another opportunity where a lot of Indian organizations, whether it in across the industry, in the government sector, in the global capability centers, in the India-based R&D organizations, e-commerce players, all have a compulsion to move their legacy systems onto, migrate it to cloud and have a complete cloud stack. So this compulsion is actually driving a lot of innovation across industries and hence the need for global startups. Particularly when the need for a global startups has emerged in the era of the cybersecurity space. So anybody building a digitally ready solution, which means a plug and play on a mobile device with the cybersecurity, doesn't matter where the startup is situated, anywhere in the globe, there is an opportunity. So I just gave you an overview of the kind of industries and the market space that we are talking about. So as we go along, I'll briefly touch on each one of them. And in the meanwhile, I just want to sort of check with Sriram that he has been operating in this space in India, and like any other startup, his aspiration also is to serve the Indian enterprise client, the who's who of the e-commerce giants, and various other opportunities in the market space. So, Sriram, as a startup, typically what kind of challenges or pushbacks that you get when you try to enter an Indian enterprise market segment or any aspirational segment, that you have been working along?
Thanks, So I think I think you've given a good sort of perspective of the overall market. Maybe, I'll try and talk about a few more tactical aspects because, as a founder and as a startup, we've built our business from 0 to 1 in India. And now, we have a subsidiary in Singapore, for example, and we're talking to customers in the Southeast Asian market. So we have at least an initial sense of what the differences could be, if that's what some of you founders are looking at, if that helps. And also, some challenges I can sort of brief upon, and I'll try and be more tactical because I think you've given a broader strategic map of, the landscape, right? So I completely agree that in terms of, engagement with startups, from what we've seen, especially for large enterprises, as a change, and it could be sort of contrary to the popular view that Indian enterprises are much more today equipped in terms of internal processes to engage with startups, right? So there are various, of course, there is a big push from a governance perspective with the national startup policy and so on and so forth. So any large enterprise that you today engage with will have some format. It could be very, very formal, of course, with folks like Startup Ratio who are in an organized manner, in running these initiatives as startup engagement initiatives. Or there are various enterprises where there are at least an innovation office who are mandated to go and look at startups. So you will find that across different maturity levels, there would of course be companies running mature programs, cohorts, 2 or 3 cohorts every year. So and there are companies where they do it more in a more ad hoc manner. And I believe that that's the best engagement model to eliminate all these hurdles or pushbacks that you may get when selling to to any of the CXOs that are relevant to your product, right? So when you go through the innovation office or through the structured program, sometimes it's time consuming. There could be scenarios where you spend a lot of time, but it's still, I believe, a very good approach to get validation internally. And also the enterprise is open today to understand the limitations of you as a startup, depending on what stage you are in. Of course, if you're at the scale up stage, then you will have a separate, you'll have a different lead gen cycle in terms of reaching out to enterprises. But if I was in my if I were in my 0 to 1 journey, I would surely be looking at engaging with a bunch of such programs. Pick what may be best for you, and I'm sure that Ajay and team are also facilitating some of those discussions. But even beyond that, most of the enterprises will have some of these programs and offices, and that's the first step. And just to sort of end, an answer to the question, I think the second part is to understand the overall ecosystem. So from a scale perspective, it's very different in India. So we, like the panelists mentioned, we are probably 500 million odd smartphone users, slightly above that, 400 odd million, or slightly more, 600 odd million internet connectivity, kind of people who are connected to data. The numbers are varied. I think the formal census was in 2020, but at least 500 million people that enterprises are targeting with digital initiatives, right? All sorts of enterprises, right? Healthcare, retail, auto, all of them. So digital transformation is huge. And there is, even though there are large companies that are system integrators that they're engaged with, there are various gaps that startups can fill, and point solutions where you have extreme domain capability, right? Let's assume conversational AI is a small piece, right, that we operate in, or it could be any such product gap that you fill in an enterprise. There is surely a large opportunity today in India, and through the innovation office is where we have seen significant adoption and an opportunity to sort of test and apply. And the last one would be to just qualify these opportunities and ensure that you are working with the right accounts. Is just left to each use case and scenario and your discretion on how you sort of look at such opportunities. But from our discussions, I would say that compared to though the enterprise digital maturity could be much higher in some of the enterprises, let's say financial enterprises in Southeast Asia, But the opportunity here is that most of these enterprises are building that journey. So the opportunity you get will be significant compared to what you get in Southeast Asia, right? So some of these processes are being set up here, and hence the opportunity to come in, fill that gap, and scale. So you would see numerous startups that are come in and scaled up within one enterprise, even though they may not have too many use cases, but it's worked for that enterprise and you scale. So that's probably the biggest difference that I've seen, and the opportunity. In terms of pushbacks, I think it's common compared to any, even it's a large system integrator who's going and selling it, or a startup. The pushbacks are the same. If you have a good product demonstration, if your pilot works really well, it's a pilot market. But of course, today enterprises are willing to pay for these pilots. These are not free pilots anymore. And if you're able to do a good paid initial engagement and prove value, I think this is probably the best market today in terms of the opportunity size. In terms of the total size of the enterprise market, we are maybe 140, 150 billion, maybe 1/4 of what the Southeast Asian market does or the Singapore market does. But in terms of just the opportunity for startups, I think that size is much higher. The pie that you can get from an enterprise is much higher, is what I would sort of opine.
Okay, great, Sriram. These are very good inputs, and I like what you actually said in terms of the need to curate, and how people like Startup Razio, who help startups and the enterprise clients to connect in terms of the appropriateness of the right startups for the right enterprise. Like just to build up on that, so one of the questions the Singaporean startups and and those who are on the call may have is, with so many startups in India already, why would they look beyond India and come to us? And is it really worth it? Kind of questions. So the good news, guys, here is that last 2 years, I have been seeing very active adoption of global startups, and particularly to what Sriram rightly said, that a lot of global startups who have had some exposure to matured digital processes. One of the expectations of the buying clients in India is that how ready are these startups for a digital journey? And what does this mean? That you may have a great functional solution that solves an industry problem, and you're disrupting a certain space. But the question is that how ready is it from a digital perspective? Does it have a predictive analytics capability? Does it have a embedded AI? There is a cybersecurity dimension built into this. Is there a Facebook-like experience, design thinking built in as part of the solution? So these are all the expectations of some of the across the board, in terms of industries, and some of these organizations who co-innovate and partner with global startups. And the advantage that the Singapore startups have is, like I have seen, especially when it comes to banking, insurance, or for example, in terms of energy. Like I know some startups who have worked with the likes of, let's say, Power Siraya, an energy company in Singapore, bringing in those kind of capabilities to organizations in India, where there is a legacy transformation happening and the need for best of practices being adopted, mobility solutions built over and top of a certain industry solution. Let me take the example of logistics. And if you were to have startups who bring in an expertise of, let's say, a route optimization for some of the e-commerce, food delivery, or any other D2C kind of opportunities here. So how you have built in a solution, keeping in mind design thinking, the user experience, so I always get questions from many of these multinational clients and other organizations in India, the retail segment, fashion and apparels, on how are these solutions, the kind of solutions that emerge out of, I mean, global startups with a specific focus on customer experience and design thinking. So they are always open to partnering or engaging global startups who bring in a special focus on these areas, particularly in those areas where there is an embedded cybersecurity and things like that. And beyond that, I also see a huge number of requirements and requests for apps related development, where they wish to co-innovate. And if I'm, let's say, Unilever here, building an omni-channel retail solution, and with the maturity of the retail organizations, the number of retailers existing in Singapore, so there is an increasing demand for integrating loyalty kind of solutions into the retail world. So I'm just giving you some examples of typical industry co-innovation models, particularly let's say another area of like an automotive sector where there is a lot of maturity in terms of connected vehicle experience, where mobile is a new device, and these are very rampant, very high maturity in geographies like Singapore. Or if Singaporean startups have built solutions for their global clients, they are welcome here. So net, what we are trying to say is this is a market not just for extremely matured, the best of class startups, but even those who have built some disruptive solutions in new age technologies, which is typically generative AI related, chat GPT in and around that, conversational AI, predictive analytics over and above existing solution, like a third party standalone solution. So these are all, kind of a horizontal technology which will sit over and above any industry solution that you are building in. And another important aspect of this cross-cultural adoption of startups from Indian clients is the cultural fit, in terms of you belong to a different category. But by and large, my observation of the patterns that of co-innovation, particularly large clients, enterprise clients in government, and in the even in the enterprise class or even in the MSME sector, is that they are by and large comfortable in dealing with global startups. And when we talk about cultural fit, it's about how you cope up with their pace of innovation, which means that how fast can you run along with them, and how quickly can you adopt to an enterprise. So that's some of the parameters that we have seen sort of stabilizing over the last couple of years. So we have seen startups, by virtue of being part of various accelerators, by and large, they have learned how to impress upon a large enterprise. So the large enterprise in India versus a Singapore is not very different. There is a difference in the maturity levels in the way the digital transformation has happened within the organizations. It's all about they run at different speeds when it comes to digital, when it comes to serving their client's client. So one of the things that I would urge the Singaporean startups and all those in the call is, if you want to serve and enter the Indian market space, one of the things that you probably, and this is, I'm sharing some of the best practices that other global startups have learned, is how much you understand about their overall enterprise. Absolutely mandatory. More than that, how much of that you know about their client. For example, there is a big opportunity in the tire industry, and across the manufacturing and supply chain life cycle, or in the food and beverages industries, again the same supply chain and logistics related solutions. So again, understanding my customer's customer, my supplier's supplier, is very critical when you try to enter the Indian market space. This is when I see a bit of a challenge for Indian enterprises to say that, hey, you understand my organization, but the way I deal with my distributor, I deal with my financer, is slightly different from what you are used to in Singapore or elsewhere. So this can become important for certain solution and certain category of industries in knowing beyond your aspirational customer. That's something where I have seen that. And Sriram, did you also have any kind of a bottleneck in terms of understanding your prospective customer before entering a particular market?
Yeah, I think I agree with you that talking a customer's language, I think maybe a bit more important in India compared to some markets. Maybe if you take Singapore, a lot of Singapore startups may have worked with Indonesia as a market which is very very similar. I am assuming to India from my very limited discussions, right? So a lot of these enterprises would like you to talk their language, which requires that traditional SaaS pitches, if it is enterprise focused, will have to sort of have certain, change in terms of at least the language, right? It's just not product and value prop of that product, which will be very important. But then how will it work for me is a big question that most people have, and they would want to at least see it in their scenario, right? Or an example that relates to their industry. Say, for example, if I work with auto and I'm in a four-wheeler segment, which is very, very close to a two-wheeler, auto retailer, when I'm talking to a two-wheeler brand in India, they would necessarily want us to talk because the market dynamics are slightly different. The end customers are different. The profile is different. So that understanding, they would assume that you've done that background work before you could talk to let's say a CDO of a large entity. That's big. Another big area that I would say is in terms of maturity. When we spoke, because some of these processes are getting built in India and they are extremely digitally forward. So I'm assuming that across the globe you can compare it with the West. Even today, in terms of the new platform technologies such as AI, etc., you would see far more use cases being tried out and implemented in India compared to other markets in the enterprise world, at least in the last 3 to 4 years. And you would see so many use cases, especially driven through startups. So the approach a lot of enterprises take is also co-creation, right? Which is that you have something and I have a business problem. So how do we now come together to see how your platform works for me? And it may work for some of you, it may not work for some of you, depending on how your platform is built and how you price it and so on and so forth. But if that's an area, if you are in your 0 to 1 journey, and if you want a really strong use case, and if you're flexible enough to make that 10-20% change adapting to that enterprise, then you would see their doors open in India far more. And I think people coming from global startups coming from global to India have the same advantages like when you go from India to outside, because you bring in some different perspective, and you may have solved the same problem slightly differently, or it may not have been something that the Indian startups have as a value prop, so you sort of stand to differentiate because of that. And if you're able to co-create a solution, and that then becomes a scalable value prop, it could be an add-on feature probably onto your product, but then becomes a really scalable use case for you to take to other customers.
Great, great. Thanks, Sriram. So just to wrap up the kind of where are the opportunities, immediate opportunities available for the Singaporean the startups or Singaporean solution providers or any category of service providers. I think the real buying is happening in few sectors, which I'll just walk you through very quickly. It's in the cybersecurity space, and it's in the merchandising and omni-channel retail space. It's happening in the connected segment in the automotive sector. And horizontal technology, it's always about superimposing mobile app development for some of these large retail players and insurance companies. And horizontal technologies are always being sought after in terms of particularly the chatbot area and the conversational AI. There are a few players, in India, but there is also a strong demand for industry-specific chatbot platforms with business rules built in. And of course, the government sector has significant opportunities for Singapore as we speak. Anybody who is focusing on the smart city ecosystem with able to consolidate, like build a super app for logistics, healthcare, education, citizen engagement in a smart city ecosystem. I've got a lot of startups from the Dubai Smart City ecosystem access Indian markets. So that's one area. So across the segment, there is significant opportunities, and probably getting in touch with Startup Rescue after this, probably will get a lot more clarity for the startups there. And with this, I open up the conversations for any questions, or anything or a comment that the startups in the call may have. So it's open to any Q&A. So, okay, let me sort of provoke the audience. So how many of you really badly want to get into Indian market?
Yes, Pulak, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Sunil, and hi, Sriram. I loved your talk just now. I just want, so I'm currently based in Singapore actually, but I'm from India and I'm working here. And for sure, looking to enter the startup market in India as well as in the whole Southeast Asia region. So I just wanted to know what would be your advice for young entrepreneurs who are looking to venture out into something like this, and how can one actually start building something global, not only limited to India or Singapore, and especially with the coming of AI and technology now.
Yeah, Pulak, thanks. Yeah, slightly it's a broad-based question. Can you narrow it to, do you have any industry in mind? Which industry do you want to disrupt? And which
Okay,
something,
so
right?
yeah, I'm actually from sustainability.
Okay,
So
yeah,
sustainability, consulting, green
got it,
buildings,
got it.
smart buildings. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, I can just straight away jump into the domain side of the solution, but let me quickly tell you. So, what is still the problems that are yet to be resolved in the sustainability space is in the water conservation related stuff and AI. So, there is a lot of solutions in the market on the AI front. For the energy part of it, the non and the water related, particularly large clients. I know the likes of the ITCs and other food majors, the Nestle's of the world. But when you think of building a global solution, I think one of the disruption questions that you should ask is, today, the solution that you are planning to build, if it doesn't exist, what will the customers miss? What is that you are doing somebody that nobody has attempted, and you are not just like a imitation of somebody or a flavor of some global solution. You are building it for local clients. So I think the best way for you to think about entering global markets with a disruptive solution is, what is it that I do? I can, and the hint I can do, the reason I asked you about the industry in sustainability is fairly matured in terms of clean energy solution. But what is still, there is a scope to build, particularly for AI in the EV part of it. And also in terms of, there is hardly any solutions for water conservation when it comes to AI-based predictability, and in the terms of risk of water, predicting water shortages. It's huge problem yet to be resolved from an AI space when it comes, if you are focusing on the sustainability front. So the short answer is that think of anything disruptive in this space. If you think of quickly making a mark and building a disruptive solution. Does it answer
Thank
your
you.
question, Pulak?
Yeah. In a way, it's very
Yeah.
helpful. Thank
We'll
you.
take it offline, a slightly broad-based question, but I
Of
think,
course.
yeah, sure. Anyone else?
Sunil, Sriram, since we don't have any immediate questions, so as to say now, I'd like to move on to the next segment. And thank you so much for such an insightful conversation. I'm sure our audience has taken a lot of insights and a lot of information from your conversation. I'd like to now move on. And I'd like to invite Ajay again and tell us about the GI Mumbai Acceleration Program.
Sure. Thank you, Anshul, for that. Can you just bring up our slide deck?
Yes.
Thanks. So for the benefit of the audience, and because this conversation is being recorded and it will be posted in a couple of places talking about the program and the opportunity for Singaporean companies looking at expanding in Mumbai, in India. Currently, we are recruiting for the third cohort of the Global Innovation Alliance Mumbai program. Even though the program has Mumbai in its nomenclature, it is pretty much a soft landing via Mumbai, but looking at the broader India opportunity. There's two iterations or two editions of the program that we have hosted so far, pretty much focused on fintech, AI, and supply chain to begin with. And after undergoing two editions of the program, which are pretty much structured as 3-month interventions with a component of in-person or on-ground program, with which the program culminates, we've kind of made a slight pivot or slight iteration to the program going forward. So moving away from just a standard run-of-the-mill 3 month of market immersion or market acceleration program, we have kind of evolved the program into multi stage kind of an engagement, for a simple reason that you have companies which are at different stages of their journey or their growth cycle. While there are many companies which might be interested in the India opportunity, and going to the provocative question that Sunil asked, how many of you are really desperate or really keen to kind of bring your businesses to India? I think that's exactly the kind of problem one wants to solve for, because even if you line up yourself for a webinar or you sign up for a program, a lot of times if you were asked to commit 8 to 12 weeks to a program, you just might not be ready at that point in time. Yes, it is of interest to you, but at that point in time, can you give 8 to 12 weeks is a question mark. So we have broken the program down into three parts, calling it Explore, Build, and Grow. Explore is the baseline, if you may say. It's a 2 week entry level program, which is basically looking to open up conversation around what the India market opportunity looks like. It's basically a program which will allow you as a company to take a no go kind of a strategy for building an India market strategy, or what the next steps should be. Moving on from Explore, and under Explore, we're looking at doing a bare minimum of 10 companies to begin with, but the number could be more because we'll be doing a few editions of Explore during the year. Moving on from Explore, we have Build. So companies which actually go through the Explore and have begin strategizing on the India opportunity and have identified resources that they want to put in. And resources could mean people, time, whatever. But they know for a fact that they want to build an India strategy and enter the India market. Build is a program which is structured across 6 weeks, and probably it's the closest to the current iteration or the current version of GIA Mumbai that we operate with Enterprise Singapore. And the program is more focused on in-market introductions, access to potential B2B customers and partners, a conversation with experts who can help you kind of build a strategy for the India market opportunity, and so on. So very hands-on in terms of mentorship, advisory, advocacy, but also kind of getting you linked up with potential partners, customers, which will allow you to kind of build the revenue opportunity. And then coming on to Grow, which is a more mature version of the program, and which is where we believe that maybe even if we get 3 to 5 companies during the year, it would have met its objective. This is basically kind of helping you kind of grow on the ground by providing you access to ourselves as Startup Réseau, but more importantly, also kind of helping you build in market by creating different interventions and being your point person on the ground, who kind of allows you to build a revenue book on the ground. So what would differentiate between a build and a grow is that while build is time bound in a 6 week format, grow is a longer term kind of program where basis the readiness of the company post build, we kind of provide ongoing continued support on the ground and help you with things like whether it is incorporation, whether it is hiring, uh, managing your key accounts and all of that, which allows you to kind of then dedicatedly focus on building an India strategy or a India version of the company. So in that way, the program is structured as a tiered approach rather than just having a standard GIA program which would run 3 months. We now have an Explore which is a baseline or a L0. Then you have a L1 which is built, and then you have an L2 which is grow. I'm sure we can move to the next slide. Yeah. So this is what the broader kind of offerings look like from an Explore standpoint. Explore is more to provide you an overview of the business environment in India, the opportunities, focusing on few sectors which the recruitment is around, talking about those sectors in details and talking about whether it is business cases and success stories and making introductions to the stakeholders, reverse pitches with corporate innovation programs, a B2B marketplace which brings in a network of about 6 to 8 corporates who are your potential customers and partners. And in addition to that, providing you professional advisory support, mentorship, investor connects, uh, business connects, which kind of will help you figuring out the tax and legal structure, the immigration routes, and so on. So that is Explore. Coming on to build largely focuses on the biz dev side, so getting you access to at least 10 to 12 pre-qualified B2B meetings, but also kind of providing you time on the product validation and the go-to-market strategy, which is kind of linked to the in-market advisory and business support in terms of building out an India strategy. If you need to kind of have a local product team or local dev shop that you need to work with, helping you kind of find one which is legit and which is kind of having a trust score of sorts, helping you with the local team, also providing you with 35 to 50 hours of mentoring, either in forms of one-on-one group sessions and all of that put together. And at the same time, having one anchor mentor who's kind of going to do periodic check-ins with you over the course of the program. There's also going to be an on-ground program component with which the program culminates or program ends, where you're coming to India, you're spending time in Mumbai. Probably if there is time for you to go to another city, we do that, but also facilitating 10 up to 10 B2B in-person meetings, and the additional offerings which include professional advisory services, access to investors, putting together a mini demo day of sorts where you get to kind of interact with potential investors, stakeholders, and so on. Next one. And that's Grow. Grow here is focused purely on 15 to 20 pre-qualified B2B meetings, but more importantly, helping you kind of grow and scale in a market like India with effective marketing strategies, local product development team, local hiring, having a dedicated India-based partner, and around that kind of build in an in-market advisory and business support where on an ongoing basis you get access to your anchor mentor and domain experts, but also kind of getting support on the market due diligence, operating structure, and market development activities, which will help you kind of identify what's the most ideal structure for you to have in a market like India and what kind of resources you need to kind of budget for. And the on-ground program, the workspace that comes in as an add-on where you kind of get to work out of our office, you get to kind of leverage the in-market trip more for B2B meetings and some of the conversations which are ongoing, we're able to kind of build on those. Next one. So here's the link for you to kind of register your interest for the program. There's a QR code that you can scan. It takes you to a registration page. But this is what the broad program looks like. I mean, we are grateful to Enterprise Singapore to have identified us as a partner of choice to deliver the GIA member program. And I'd like to also bring on screen Elaine from Enterprise Singapore to add to the conversation over here and talk a bit more about the program offerings that you see on screen. I mean, for Singaporean companies, it's a great opportunity funded to a large degree by Enterprise Singapore, opening up their network and partnering with someone like us to open up the avenues and opportunity for Singaporean companies looking at expanding in India. It gives you access to build your go-to-market readiness, a lot of networking opportunities, coaching and workshops which allow you to kind of build an India strategy, and also access to possible funding opportunities. Elaine, if you want to add to that, please come on screen.
Yeah, thanks, Ajay. So I think maybe just one thing to add is that I think because earlier Ajay mentioned that this will be the third iteration. So we ran the first and the second one. So just to share with you that in terms of one of the success outcome was that during our first program itself, one of them actually did incorporate in India. They actually did a local hire, and they're also looking to see how they can localize their product. So just to share, the company name is called Parcel. They are actually a log tech company, so they are doing some same-day delivery. So what they need to do is to really map out what are some of the delivery points for same-day delivery services. So I think that was a very good success through this whole program, because Startup Réseau, they brought in the relevant connections for them, and that's why they are able to establish their presence in India and hopefully to grow further. So I think that's one of the key things that we hope that if you were to join this program, that is one of the outcomes that you can look forward to. And really thanks to the team at Startup Réseau for bringing such a good networks. I think another thing we wanted to share was that there was this another company, which is a fintech, or rather fintech cybersecurity company. They also get to meet with like major financial institutions like the National Stock Exchange. So what we also do understand is that it's very challenging to actually meet such key like ecosystem players in the market. But Startup Réseau, with the connections, they are able to help to do that for the participants of the GIA program. So yeah, happy to share more about any other success stories that we have, and hope to have you on board. So scan the QR code and do join us. Thank you. I'll hand over the time to Anshu.
Thanks, Elaine. And with that, we come to the end of this webinar. If you are interested in the India market, we'd encourage you to just register your interest on the link here, and our team will get back to you, share more about what the program looks like, which program would be most suitable for your company, and we can take it forward from there. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and special thanks to our speakers, Sunil and Sriram.
Thanks, guys.